Let's do an appreciation giveaway before we begin our 8-minute tier list video. Since we've had so much support lately on this channel, I'm doing a $100 giveaway. You can either choose a gift card to the app stores, or I can just always send you the cash equivalent. Our previous winner was Zenitsu Kama. Sorry if I butchered that. So to enter the giveaway, just drop a comment on this video, be subscribed to the channel, and drop a like to show your support. Now, I feel like tier lists are unnecessarily long these days, so let's do a quick 8-minute tier list for our SSR hunters. At the very top of our tier list, holding the crown, we have Choi. He's one of the strongest units we have in Soul Leveling Arise. Choi is interesting because he can't crit, but that just means you can focus on penetration and attack stats for him, making him such an ease to build. He has a very nice defense debuff that can constantly proc on enemies. His skills also have a ton of airborne mechanics on them, including knockdowns as well, just expanding the amount of utility he has. So he is one of those units that you should be aiming for when rerolling, otherwise you will be missing out on a ton of potential damage. The good news is, if you play for the long haul and don't get Choi on your first pity SSR, from my understanding, your next pity SSR will be guaranteed, so don't fret, you will eventually unlock them. Now for our hunter that goes right next to Choi, we have the hunter that refuses to let me summon them. Emma is just an amazing well-rounded unit. Even though she is a hunter with a ton of damage, her skills still leave her extremely tanky, but that's not the best thing about her. All her skills come with break stacked onto them, and that includes her basic attacks. So if shields are an issue for you, well, let's just say Emma can very easily handle that. And if we look at her passive, not only does she apply defense pen to everyone on the team, she also gets a shield on top of it, making her seem like a dream hunter with everything in her kit. Now, one thing I do want to know about Emma is that her skills, as you can see here, all deal damage based on HP scaling, so building her is an absolute breeze, making her a tanky damage dealer. Now the question is, if you're rerolling, should you go for her? And obviously yes, try your best to go for Emma as well. She's not only a tank, but a damage dealer that can literally buff everyone on the team. That is again due to the damage pen her passive does provide. Next up on our tier list, let's go for Hunter Huang. He isn't an S tier unit to say the least. He is in that B tier. He has some usefulness in his kit, having a crowd control effect that easily goes off. He has knockdowns and airbornes, and if we look at his skill, Cold-Blooded Connection, he has an extremely long stun, immobilizing the target for 4 seconds, which is something we're not really used to seeing, and it also removes shield effects from bosses, which is amazing. So as we creep up to higher combat power in the game and fail to keep up, Huang can be a perfect pairing on your team, and his passive makes him a very defense heavy unit, with the majority of his skills obviously scaling with defense, which is actually a problem since we don't really have a means to support his defense obsession, meaning he is currently a weak unit, that is until we have some defensive sets to build him with, even though he has the potential to be a great unit in the future. As it stands right now, he isn't the very best, landing him in our B tier, so you should avoid him when rerolling. Next, let's go for Yunhu. This man right here has so much break on his skills, so if shields are a problem, you're in luck. Just like Emma, his basic attacks come with break. His kit overall is very quick to activate, and he has defense increases that quickly apply, that being violent explosions. The only issue of Yunhu is that he also scales off defense, so we don't have much to build him up with right now, but that's not to say he isn't a good unit. We just have to wait to see what his potential will be like, as the game is still in its infancy, so if you are rerolling, definitely avoid him right now, but as a unit you pull through playing the game, he is definitely a keeper, so this does land him at the top of our A tier. Next up, let's cover Libora, a very easy unit to get due to the shop specials that we have. She is a dark support unit, which is an issue since we don't really have that many dark hunters in the game right now, so we can't really use her to the fullest, making their potential still unrealized, but of course, as more units get released, this will change. One issue I have is with her skill set is that she has an enchantment circle that provides various debuffs and damage effects, but it's honestly hard to stay inside these effect zones, making her benefits not consistently apply, which is a shame, but again, she is a great unit. If you already have dark hunters and nothing else, she can make a junky team into a successful one, and if we look at her dupe effect, it's honestly quite strong since it allows her to change the effect to Phantom Fox, where 3 foxes are summoned with a damage increase applied as well, so we can't say she doesn't have the ability to be a great unit, but as it stands right now, she is in our B tier. So no, she is not a unit you should be rerolling for, for, definitely do avoid her. If you pull her, I gotta say you have to go back and start rerolling yet again. Now for another A tier unit we have Lim. Since we are on the theme of Dark Hunters, he is amazing for damage output and would pair well with Libora. He does have a lot of break on his skill set, meaning bosses will be easier to deal with. The problem is with his skills, they do take a bit of effort to get off since there is a charge time and aiming required. So if you are dealing with a lot of enemies, you will struggle with his skills going off fully, especially when they spam their skills or move constantly. But in terms of damage, he's amazing, scaling off attack, making him a very easy unit to build. So again, a solid option for bossing, being one of the top damage dealers we have. He isn't a unit you should be rerolling for, but he is a good unit overall, just not one of the best we've seen, landing him in our A tier. Now for the bottom of the barrel SSR units, we have Wu. His passives do let you dodge a bit more, such as Adjustment Enforcement, which increases the max number of dash stacks by 2 and charges for 20 seconds, but overall his damage output is terrible, especially since we have so many hunters that outclass him. His passives don't provide much utility, like breaks or crowd control effects, so this lands him unfortunately in our C tier. We don't have many good things to say about him, and he does get outclassed by other SR ranked units. Now next up we have an A tier hunter. His healing capabilities make him the best in his class, but the game doesn't really reward healing as much as it does with breaks, dodging, and having damage overall, so most of the time you won't be using him. This is for the early to mid game, but as we progress later on, he's actually a bit useful, but as it stands right now, he isn't that top tier unit everyone wants. Some effects to take note of: looking at his Heavenly Blessing, has a disguise effect where enemies will take on more damage, translating from more crit, on top of all the increased healing he will now provide. His sets are simple to build, so this allows him to heal more, and our other hunters will deal more damage because of this. Unlike most units, we don't really need dupes of him. He doesn't benefit like the other top tier SSR units we have, so a single copy of him is honestly beneficial, and in Battlefield of Time, as I'm sure all of you know, we do need a ton of heals, that way we do sustain our battles, so he is a top tier unit for that, landing him in a cozy A tier spot. And last but certainly not least, we have our final S tier unit. Jiwoo scales off HP, making her a tank we can actually use, considering HP scaling is actually doable, unlike our other defense scaling hunters. Her passives and skills can constantly go off easily. Taking a look at her skills, they provide break, knockdowns, shield, and super armor, and what super armor does essentially makes it so you can't get knocked down, which is a fantastic ability to have, of course, allowing you to keep up your DPS and dodges. She basically is the best shield breaker in the game right now, on top of having some major DPS. This includes her being naturally tanky with the HP scaling, so she really does it all, but comparing her to other tanks, she's missing that break effect on her skills, so looking at her basic attacks, there is a lot to long for with these lack of breaks, but again, she has so many pros that this easily lands her in our S tier, and in terms of rerolling, she is actually a keeper, so if you do land on her, consider keeping her instead of swapping the account. She is a solid starter that will easily carry you while also being a solid tank. Emma is still potentially a bit better and a bit easier to use, but they are both fantastic units. And there you go, we have our tier list. I think this represents the game quite well. We have our obvious S tier picks, and our A tier definitely looks solid as well. Again, not that many units in the game right now, but this is the general landscape of the game. Our S and A tier units are currently the units you really want to use, and our B and C tier, well, they have their use cases, but right now they certainly don't shine, so we'll have to see how this changes as the game does progress and get further updates. So let me know your thoughts on this tier list, if you agree or disagree. Again, tier lists are completely subjective, so these are just my opinions. I'm sure some of you have different opinions, so I really do want to hear them. It's always good to get more knowledgeable of the game, but if you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to enter our giveaway. We have lots more content coming for Soul Leveling Arise. This is Zaf signing out.